welcome to Man's Model Moments, Midweek Model Meet, and today the build of the Ventura. Excuse me, guys. Nice to see you all. Just looking at chat. Sophie, good to have you back. Do you know, I was thinking about you because I've just had a donut. I was just thinking, I haven't seen Sophie for a while, but here you are. It must be the donut that has brought you back. So, sorry, I've now got donut in my mouth. Please excuse me. There we go. So not quite making any homemade biscuits, cakes, cookies, donuts and dark chocolate muffins, but certainly eating a 1-to-1 scale donut. So there we go. So Sophie, welcome back. Adrian, good to see you. Little Things Junkie. We've got Greg. We've got Emma. We've got John Alex Scale Modelling. We've got Lox9. We've got Stuart. And I think that brings us up to date. Have I missed a whole chunk of people? Or no, I think I'm good. And Styr Bjorngren, is that right? Hopefully I didn't destroy that pronunciation too badly. But anyway, good evening all. Thank you for joining me tonight. For those of you who joined me on the for the Tuesday talk yesterday, thank you. I've been getting quite a lot of comments about that. I put a post out today as well because I've had quite a few comments recently about background noise in the video being very loud. So this is a feature that YouTube introduced called stable volume. They haven't told anybody about it in terms of, you know, it's not like it's a big active thing. I imagine that unless you've heard about it before, you guys probably haven't heard about stable volume. It's on by default. And what it does is it means that the volume of a YouTube video is the same throughout. So if you've got nobody talking and really quiet background music, YouTube amps up the volume so that that is as loud as the talking. And then when the talking comes on, obviously it goes back down. So switch it off. It's in your settings, a little gear cog on any YouTube video. You can switch off stable volume, which is how the content was originally planned by the creator, because I have the background, as I showed in the post today, it's at a really low level. It's like about 15% on the mixer. So it's just, all it should do is just be in the background, fill in any silence to just give you a background so that it takes out any street noise that there might be that's just caught by the microphone. I've got shrouds and stuff, but it just keeps that out, you know, the distracting things. So it shouldn't be, you shouldn't really be able to hear it. It's kind of like a little bit in the background occasionally. So stable volume is a bane. YouTube constantly does this. It's their playground. You know, we have to obey their rules and stuff. But they make changes all the time without consulting anybody. They just do them, and quite often not announcing them. So people don't realise, and then suddenly they're just like, why is this creator suddenly putting loud background music on? Well, they're not. It's just the stable volume feature is boosting that. So yeah, I thought it was worthy of doing a post. I do reply to comments talking about that, but I thought best to just actually make a statement about it, because I've talked about it before, and obviously people haven't got that. But of course, new people come on all the time, and you know, you just never know. So stable volume, switch it off. I've got mine permanently switched off because I don't want to hear, you know, a rationalized version of a creator's video. I want the video that the creator made as it was intended, right? So anyway, enough of my ranting on. let's carry on. So just going down, having a little look at comments. So if you in the little cog thing, so you have to be, when you're playing a video, You get a little cog. Right at the top of that is there's stable volume, voice boost, annotations, audio track, subtitles, sleep timer, playback speed, and quality. The two things that usually affect people's videos: stable volume and quality. Because if you're on a like a YouTube internet connection that isn't as strong as YouTube thinks, it might downgrade it to like 720p. So I've had people before like say to my videos, it's like, oh man, you got to get another camera because the quality is awful. It's like, have you checked what your playback quality is? Because this is 1080p. And then they'll be like, you don't hear. And it's like, okay, so you had it on 720 or 480 or something. So it should be right there at the top. In fact, I can actually show you. Let me show you on the screen. So here is a video. This is just one that I randomly took. In fact, this is a Tuesday Talk one. See here where the little cog is here? So if you click that cog, see at the top here, stable volume. By default, that is on. So you need to slide it off. And then at the bottom there, the quality. If you have it set to auto, which again is the default setting, it'll throttle your connection depending on what your internet speed is. So yeah, those are the two things that I normally get asked about. So that's where you find all of that. So hopefully that will improve some of your viewing conditions. We've had Paul Dye, we've had Brian and Craig Jukes all pop in, all good to see. And so today I've done a number of things. So I have two parts for a British aviation colours post World War II through to the present day. So I cover 40 colours. So the first 20 are in the first 15 years after the war, and the next 20 are from 1960 to the present day. So I've recorded the audio for both. I've done probably 80% of the video for the part 1, and I've just started the video for part 2. So those will be coming out in the next week or so. I also recorded a video on, and I will show you it tonight in use, as I mentioned on the video, which you won't see until after this, obviously. So this is the Galeri Turbox, or Turbo X, depending on how you want to say it. So this is the Turbox or Turbo X Mini, and it really is mini. So it's this little beast. You just unplug it. There we go. So that is an air compressor, which is quite cool. So I've done a review on that. I think it has its place. It's not going to replace my standard tank compressor, but it does have a place. It doesn't do quite what is written on the back. So if I actually have a little look on here, maximum pressure 48 psi. No. No. The maximum pressure you can get out of it in continuous use is about 26 psi. Now, I think that's fine for a little portable compressor. It's not 48 psi, and I think it's great for if you need portability, or if you want. And this is I'm cutting my own video here, but TLDR. If you want something that's portable, or say you've not got much room, or you want something that's fairly quiet, that's not going to wake up members in other parts of the house, this isn't a bad option. If you're just starting out and kind of want to upgrade and those constraints are there, or if you wanted to take it away with you if you're traveling and things, this isn't going to get you thrown out of a hotel. Whereas if you're operating a tank compressor in your bedroom, that might. Right? The other thing, of course, is and I did the review of these together, is the Aventus 2, I should say, which is just waiting for the box to open because it's a very nice unboxing experience because you get that very precise tolerance things. So this is the Ventus 2. It's a beautiful airbrush. It's very nice in the hand. It's got a really nice look to it and finish. There's a couple of things that I really like that Galeri are doing with these. One is they put a quick change connector on the brush to start with. So a lot of manufacturers don't do that, and I think it's a really good thing to have that. It meant that I could just immediately use it on my setup. But you don't have to find one of these, or you don't have to screw your thread on or anything. The other one is it comes in a 0.2 and 0.4 as standard. So it actually comes with a 0.2 mil already in, and then it gives you a needle and nozzle for the 0.4 as well. It also gives you a smaller paint cup, so you get a little diddy one, which is cute, but I don't think I'll ever use it. I don't think I'm ever going to be using that small an amount of paint. So I think some of the things they've said with this is that they've improved the tolerances. They've got technology in that allows them to get better tolerances on their parts, which I think was one of the complaints that a lot of people had about some of the earlier brushes, although I've never had an issue in that respect. So I actually took in where is it? The Ventura earlier today, and sprayed various bits of that, like so, as I said I was going to. How about that? I've actually got around to doing things that I said I was going to do. Well, that's astonishing. Almost like I'm getting organised. And one of the things I forgot is that I put all of the little bits in this container, so I didn't take these with me. So I thought that's not a problem. Because I've got this nice portable little compressor, I'll just take that home with me, and I can show you guys real time using this airbrush. So I thought that's, you guys will get an advance of kind of my experiences with this brush. So as you know, I think airbrushes are a very personal choice. So I don't think there is an airbrush to fit everybody's needs. Everybody will have slightly different requirements and the feel of an airbrush and all that kind of thing. I personally got on very well with the both the Ace, the GAD 98, I think it was, and the old Mobius. I love this. I think this is great. It fits very well in the hand. It's got a nice action. It's a good weight. It's not too heavy, but it feels substantial, and it does feel well made. So I like this airbrush. I can see it becoming my sort of standard go-to brush. But I don't think it is. I wouldn't say rush out and buy one of these right now. I think if you're thinking about something like this, it's worth trying it, or if you're already a Galeri fan, then you'll probably like it, right? So again, the link that I had with my Vortex mixer also works with these, but it works with any Galeri products, right? So if you want 10% off, then you can use that code to get something. If you're already going to buy it, you might as well save some money, right? But yeah, I'm not going to. I haven't been paid, for this. Yes, they sent me the products, but as I've said before, I will tell you if I think these are good or not, based on my experience, and I'll also show you them being used. So in the review, I actually show you the pressure that you can get off this little Turbox, whatever you want to call it. I want to call it Turbox because it sounds like a 70s robot name or something, whereas Turbo X sounds a bit too 21st century. So Turbox, we're going to call it Turbox, right? So I show you the pressures that you can actually get off this, and I show you using this for the first time. So I picked this up, first time I used it was on camera. So there's no getting used to the airbrush or, practicing with it a load beforehand. I want to show you guys what it's actually like, to experience it, just picking it out of the box and using it with, nothing else. So I've used it with both lacquer and aqueous paints. I think this Turbo X Turbox thing, for lacquers is fine. If you just want to use lacquers, it's great. If you want to use aqueous paints, it's fine, provided you're not doing fine work. Because if you're doing fine work with aqueous, I actually tested it with white, which is like one of the worst colours you can test with. And I did get a little bit of blockage towards the end of using it, but that was the paint, right? I'm using thinned white paint in a 0.2mm airbrush. Aqueous is really pushing it. Now, if I'd just been doing standard stuff, it's fine. And if I'd been using the 0.4, I'm sure it would have been fine as well. But I wanted to use the 0.2 because I think that's the acid test, right? If it passes with a 0.2, it'll pass with a 0.4. So yeah, video on that will be coming out at some point in the next week, maybe Saturday. Brian says, try measuring the actual nozzle sizes. I was surprised at the results. Yeah, I haven't. To be honest, for me, I don't really care. I know the differences from this to the last ones, the Aventus that they did before, had a brass nozzle. These, I believe, are stainless steel. So they've got some new CNC machining that can deal with stainless steel. Stainless steel is a much harder material, obviously, and so the machining tolerances that you can get with CNC on stainless steel and the durability of that is much enhanced. So I expect it'll be better. Really, what I care is about how can I use it? What's it like to use? If this was a 0.2 or a 0.3, 0.4, if it's how it actually sprays that is the important bit for me. The 0.2 for me is always, as I've said before, a bit of a turn off, because the only thing that 0.2 really does, in my opinion, is make your airbrush easier to block, right? Having said that, I've got good atomization, good patterns. I managed to do small bits with it, so I don't really have any issues. I wouldn't use it for doing fine detail work with aqueous thinned paints, because I wouldn't use any airbrush for doing thinned. If I was going to do really small detail work, I'd probably be using a Tamiya paint or a lacquer, so that I can use solvents and ensure I've got the viscosity to do, like really tiny work with fine lines, hairlines and stuff. If I'm just doing general spraying, it's fine for aqueous, and general spraying you don't need 0.2. So yeah, so we'll be using that tonight. I use a royal we, of course, because I need to paint all of these pieces, of course, because this is all the internal stuff. Well, it's also the tail and horizontal stabilizer, well, horizontal and vertical stabilizers, but all of this bit is the cockpit, which of course does need to be sprayed before we can kind of put the whole thing together. So let me just scroll up, because I did see there was a bit of chat there with some comments and questions. So Sofa Mart says, what is CCC and QQQ again? That's an excellent question and a good segue for me to tell you all. So if you have any questions or comments on the stream, if you put QQQ for a question, or question in capital letters before your question, or CCC or comment if it's just a comment on something, not a question, just helps me pull it out of the chat. And Brian and Paul have very nicely put that in as well, but it's a really good point to make, because I had forgotten to say that. So thank you, Sophie, for that prompt. Emma Bird says, Alex, could you have a talk about cast shadow in dioramas? Oh, that's an interesting one. So yeah, there's an interesting kind of subject here, and it really goes down to how you want to paint. And this comes out in the series that probably will come out around Christmas, I reckon. But I've been doing the video on tonal variation. One of those, which is already recorded, is about zenithal highlighting, right? And basically taking the painting of a subject, your lighter colours are at the tops of your surfaces and darker colours underneath, to create that illusion of depth and shadow. Now, that is helping your eyes because light doesn't interact the same way on a small object fairly close up as it does on a large object fairly far away. So you're helping your eyes be deceived into that same thing. And part of that is, of course, that things do cast shadows. So it's whether you're wanting to put that forced element into your diorama or whether you're just going to rely on the rest of the elements together to create that for you. And the choice of that is really almost a stylistic one, down to you. And I'll show that in the tonal variation because I also show structural tonal variation. So, for example, let's just use this wing here. So we've got a bunch of panel lines on this. So what I can do is on a zenithal highlighted model, so one that is emphasizing the actual passage of light, if I've primed this model grey, say, and then I prime it white from directly above, and I prime it black from directly below, I'll get highlights, midtones, and shadows, right? So the undersides will be much darker. So when I put my light colour on, it will be darkened automatically by the by that surface primer. Whereas the top layers will be lighter because I've got the white. So where it's grey, obviously it'll curve off into it. Now that produces a fairly uniform top surface because that's where most of the light is going to be hitting this in the same way. Maybe I'm going to highlight it more along the front edge if I've got sort of a virtual sun coming from up here. But that's you know, it's relatively even over the top. For a structural highlight, in between all these panel lines, I'm going to do the lighter colours. So I might prime it all in grey and then do black along the panel lines, pre-shading, then put my top coat over, or if I'm doing it with paint, I might do a sort of olive drab layer and then a slightly lightened layer, which I'm going to do in all of the panels, avoiding the edges, and then a third highlight just in the centre of those. So it's what people call the patchwork sort of effect. It shouldn't look like a patchwork, but some people do that. Now, which of those you prefer, which you think looks more quote-unquote realistic, is again, it's a stylistic choice. And shadows on dioramas are exactly the same. So yeah, I can talk more about it in the future, but that's kind of the basics of it. Paul says, I've been using the Galeri Serenair Mini for 18 months and have had zero problems whatsoever. So the Serenair, I'm not familiar with all of Galeri's products, to be honest. So I don't know. Let me just have a little look to see what the Serenair is. Serenair Mini Compressor. Okay. So that kind of looks like a... Let's just deny that one. No, I don't want related products. I want to look at this one. Yeah, so this looks like a similar sort of thing. It's slightly larger. So the Turbox, I think it really is Turbo X, but Turbox is what's the RRP on that? Looks like, okay, it's £51 RRP. Whereas the Serenair is 80. So basically this one's £50. You get it for about, well, if you use that coupon, it's like 46. So it's it's quite a cost-effective entry into airbrushing. I'm just looking at the Aventus 2 shopping airbrush. Okay. I can't see a reliable price for it because they're on eBay and stuff. £176, is that right? Not sure. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject. So yeah, a Serenger or this little Turbox, again, unless you're going down to, a 0.2 to do fine detail work, I think something like this is going to be absolutely fine. The only thing I noticed was that doing, just not a huge amount of spraying, just spraying the inside of the Ventura, is the connection to the actual compressor. This part here got quite hot. The little rubber feet though work really well. So yeah, it's not bad, but you're not going to be spraying cars with it. But that's not what it's for. So it wouldn't replace a tank-based compressor, I don't think. I don't know. That's not really where it's aimed at. But for the money, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Okay, just scrolling down. Brian has the comment about the actual nozzle size. He says it doesn't matter to him either, but it was a surprise. Craig also says, I don't get lost in needle size. As I've learned to use my airbrush, I understand which is best for what I'm doing. Yeah. And Paul says he's got a 0.4 Tamiya trigger for large areas and 0.3 Galeri for fine work. You see, yeah. You see, I like a 0.3 because I think a 0.3 is kind of, it's the best of all worlds, right? It's not as fine as a 0.2, obviously, so you don't get as much clogging, but it's fine enough to do pretty much anything, and large enough that you can actually spray large areas pretty consistently. So 0.4 I haven't used an awful lot because I'm not doing a lot of big stuff spraying, and the 0.3 is a good compromise. So be interesting to see how I got on with a 0.2 here. I've enjoyed it so far, but I don't think I'm doing enough like fine work to justify it. I might try the 0.4 and see, if is that going to be much different for what I use it for. It'll certainly reduce the amount of clogs, but we'll see. So for March says, question, can I use Citadel paints in my Revell airbrush? Yes, you can. Whether you should is another thing. So the main thing with using any water-based acrylic is, have you thinned it sufficiently? And I would recommend something like my thinners because they reduce, so my aqueous thinners here reduce the viscosity of your paint to something that will atomize well, and this also has something in to reduce tip dry. So tip dry is more of an issue with some aqueous paints, but provided you thin a paint correctly, there's no reason why you can't spray it with any airbrush, provided the solvent you're diluting it with is compatible with your airbrush, provided it doesn't have some weird fragile seals, which, let's face it, they probably don't. But that's really the only proviso. Oh, Back in My Yard is here. Hello. And they have a question. If I may be cheeky and have two short questions. One, what was the first model you ever remember building? And two, you're having a quiet night in. What do you eat? I think I've answered the second one before. Curry. Quiet night in. It's got to be a curry. Has to be my number one favourite food. Typical UK, typical Brit. Our national dish is curry. The thing is with curries are they cover the full spectrum. You can have something that isn't hot, isn't spicy at all the way through to something which will knock your socks off. I'm not for the knock your socks off. I'm more middle of the road. I like something with a bit of spice, a bit of heat to it, but not something that is unpleasant. Jalfrezi is about as hot as I will go. If I'm having a quiet night in, it'll be more like something like a korai or biryani or buna, something like that. But maybe I'd even go to like a butter chicken or something, something really mild. But yeah, that's the first one. First model I ever remember building. I remember building the Airfix Cessna MiG-21 dogfight double. That's one I do remember building. I was, oh God, I don't know, 6 or 7 at the time. I remember, I have a memory of like painting and the paint mixing with the glue oozing out of the seams. So yeah, I don't. Thankfully, there's no record of that, but I don't think it was very good. Simon's Modelling Shed has been a member for 17 months. Thank you, Simon. Simon also has a channel. If you want to go and check out his stuff, he does a lot of reviews of model shows, which are well worth seeing. And yeah, a solid supporter of the channel. Thank you, Simon. What else do we have here? Samuel Stevenson, welcome. A few other people popping in. Apologies if I miss anybody. Simon says, I have 2 Galeria Advanced Seekers, the dual 3mm and 5mm airbrush. Yep. They've become really popular. I mean, Galeria, as I mentioned before, a lot of people criticise companies like Galeria for, let's call it, being generous with the creator community and giving products for review. And I understand how, especially smaller channels, might feel like obliged to say something nice, but I think you have to understand, as a content creator who receives a product, your job is to give an honest and open review to your viewers. Anything less is not going to help you short or long term. And I think manufacturers respect that because it's cheap advertising for them, right? It's the cost of the products. Normally, like, advertising campaigns cost tens of thousands of pounds, right? So this is cheap for them, right? They're making the products, it's just giving products out to people. And if they can get the majority of people, if they've got a product they believe in, those majority of people are going to give positive reviews because of what that product is. That's going to really help boost the sales, which then pay for all of that stuff anyway. So I understand that people are sometimes a little bit reticent about, Galeria have sent, there's all these reviews on Galeria. It's like, but that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing because it doesn't matter who you like or don't like on YouTube. There'll be somebody who will give, and that overall number of reviews will tell you whether it's good or not. It will give you a general impression. I think Galeria have done good work in actually listening to the community, which is all what the Tuesday talk was about yesterday, of course. Emma says, Barbos Rex showed a gizmo for using a pop bottle as an air tank that would work with one of these quiet compressors about 4 months ago. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Is it Barbos Rex? Barbados Rex? I don't know. Pretty good channel. Well worth watching. And interesting. using a pop bottle. Yeah, because you've got, it's only about 26 psi that you're really dealing with realistically. So, interesting. Oh, John's making curry. John always makes fantastic food. He puts it on his Discord. It always makes us very jealous. Brian says, question, what type of needle cap? Also, what are the results of using the different end caps? Okay, really good question. So the point 2 has this sort of bullhorn cap on. It's just a push fit. It doesn't screw on or anything, as I found as I was messing about with this today when it fell off. So there we go. The point 4 has a simple circle one, so you can differentiate between the two. They have no effect at all on the spray pan. Okay, that's or they should. If they do, there's something wrong with your airbrush. All the cap is, or should be there to do, is to stop you hitting your subject with your needle. Especially important for a point 2 because, as I mentioned in the video that I'm doing on airbrushing, which give me a week or so to finish that one. Now I've got this, I can show you on camera and it will look nice because this is a beautiful airbrush. Whereas before, my airbrush is pretty filthy. Externally, I mean internally it's okay, but the closer you are to your subject, the smaller, because if you think this sprays a cone, right? That's how an airbrush works. It atomizes a cone of expanding air and paint particles. So the closer you get to your subject, if you think that cone, you're going down the cone to where it's smaller, right? So the distance you're spraying from, which is why when you're spraying big areas, you tend to spray from further away, you know. So that's another variable. So you've got 3 main variables, right? You have paint viscosity, air pressure. Anyone know what the third one is? Any guesses? How far you pull the trigger back, your trigger back stuff, the amount of paint you're putting through. So you have a 3-dimensional surface with a green zone kind of in the middle. I've got a beautiful graphic that shows you that. But then that is for one point in space. If you move half the distance, that curve changes. So it's one of the complexities of airbrushing is you're really dealing with a 4-dimensional graph, which is difficult for us 3-dimensional humans to think about. And the thing is, there's no right point in there. There's basically a cloud which works, and you can be anywhere within that cloud and get good results. And you can even go to the edges of that and sometimes a bit out of it and still get reasonable results. So there's no, this is why, you know, people say, what's the dilution for this? Or, you know, what's the pressure for that? There is no right answer. It's always, it depends, right? Which I am thinking of creating a t-shirt for, right? Because I say it so often, and many of my members say, you know, it's just like, when they ask me a question, it's just like, is the answer going to be, it depends? And it's like, kind of, yeah. But, yes. So, 4-dimensional graphs, that's what we want. If I can find a way to display a 4-dimensional graph, I'll be showing you all of that. We need a holographic display. So yeah, the needle cap shouldn't make any difference to the spray pattern at all, because the cone shouldn't be limited by that needle cap. If you're getting build up on the edges of your needle cap, you've got a problem. So yeah, the needle cap shape shouldn't make any difference. Baz says, question, you recently, I've turned into Sean Connery. You recently mentioned IPMS membership, which interests me instead of the airfix club. When does the UK membership year start? A set date or from when you sign up? It is literally from when you sign up. So they have a huge peak in membership just before the IPMS Nationals, the end of October, of course. Because a few comments came back on, you know, me comparing the airfix and IPMS magazine, saying it's not a fair comparison because you get kits with the airfix club and other stuff. It's like, yeah, but you also get entrance to the nationals with the IPMS. So yes, there's other stuff. That's not what I was talking about. I was just talking about the quality of the magazines, relative to each other. So yes, Man's Model Moments is a virtual IPMS club. So you can join the club. Now, of course, you don't get IPMS benefits by joining the club. You have to be a member of the IPMS to get into Telford and stuff. You can't circumvent it. It's just that we have enough IPMS members that we can be an IPMS club. That means we can present at the Nationals. It means I would like to hold a model show in Wincanton. That means that IPMS would cover the insurance for that. So there's a lot of those sorts of benefits. And fingers crossed, we'll be having a physical model club in Wincanton as well every couple of weeks. So yeah, I think it's, as I said, I've been critical of the IPMS in the past. I think becoming a virtual club and showing there are different ways of doing this is a good way of getting some influence on the inside as well. But yeah. Brian says, so why all the different designs for the end caps? That's a bit like saying, why are all the designs for alloy wheels? Or, the design of this. Let me show you this a little bit closer. You see, it's a beautiful design. I mean, all of this bit, it's all completely unnecessary, right? This could be completely closed, won't affect anything, because this is how you adjust the end stop, which I don't really use. Yes, you can see this going on here, but it doesn't matter, right? There's no particular reason that this has to be, chamfered in this way. I find I quite like that because it gives you a very secure grip on the brush, but some people don't like it. So a lot of this is, there are stylistic choices, right? I've never seen any evidence that an end cap will make any difference to your spray pattern. So for Mark, question, what is a good product for cleaning brushes after painting? Routine Clean. I specifically made Routine Clean for cleaning paintbrushes after painting. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend. I'm getting to plug my products tonight, it's great. Greg says, I have 5 Galeri airbrushes, never had any problems. A Serenair for over 18 months, which was a replacement as the first one just stopped working. They replaced it very quickly. That's really good to know because obviously Galeri, Chinese company, you don't know what the support's going to be like. They have distributors in the UK, so, I don't think there should be any problems, and hearing that, they've done that is really good. So, as I've said before on the channel, I wouldn't promote something actively that I thought was bad. People said when I did the Temu thing, I was a sellout. It's like, well, hang on a minute. All I did, Temu said, would you do this? Would you show you can get modelling products through Temu? It's like, yeah, I can. And all I did was exactly that. I showed you can get models through Temu, and they had an offer, which I thought was good. And that's it. So the product you get from Temu, there's variable quality, right? I'm not saying Temu is great, but you can get models through there. That was it, I wasn't promoting Temu as, the be-all and end-all of everything. So I think people get very focused on, thinking that, oh, you've sold out. It's like, well, I have to keep the lights on. If somebody gives me a proposal, if it's acceptable, then, and the Temu one was, yeah, why wouldn't I do that? That's part of this business, how it works, right? The thing is, if I do that, I will tell you that I'm doing that. It was a paid promotion, it was, and it wasn't even a promotion as such. It was just, yeah, you can buy modelling stuff through Temu. Anyway, let's get to do some modelling, shall we? Oh, couple of quick little. Is your autofocus off? No, it's not. It does cause some problems sometimes, but in fact, it's probably the fact that it is on, and it's for some reason in OBS the autofocus always seems to be a little bit too short. There we go. Is that better? Yeah, that's a bit better, isn't it? It just makes odd choices. I don't know why. It's a Logitech 920. If anybody's got any clues or shortcuts for me, please do tell me. Greg says, I also have 2 of their productivity kits. The first was damaged, so they sent me another one for free, and I'm currently working with them to restock the Vortex. So yeah, I like their products. Yeah, great. Excellent. Okay, well, now that I got that in focus, I'm going to switch to the other camera. Right, let's switch over. Let's move my keyboard first. You don't see how dirty my keyboard is, do you? Full of modelling dust, basically. Right. So, here we go. Those are the bits I didn't get to put together last time because, of course, we had the Revell logo on there, which I was much chagrined at. Very poor form. We've got those pieces as well. And then we've got all of this. So, I bet I've left my little holders, haven't I? Oh, that's a pain. Well, we'll just have to deal with it as best we can. Right. So, we've got some Outlaw Zinc Chromate Green here. And I'm using my low odour leveler so I don't stink out my house. These are the pieces from last time. So you can see I've already sprayed green chromate primer in all of this. If you're looking at this and thinking, oh, that doesn't look particularly even, it's because I try not to spray really even coats in internal places like this because I want some tonal variation, because these things weren't even and it's going to get weathered after that anyway. So I don't want a nice even coat. It's deliberately slapdash. So we've got the same here, of course, internally, all green. I did, of course, take it apart to do that, just taped it back up. Quick drink of coffee. Lox says I have 2 Harder and Steamax, 2 Iotas, 1 Mr. Hobby, 1 Tamiya, 1 Galeri and 1 Fender. Wow. That's a lot of airbrushes to choose from. Which is your favourite, Lox? Which do you prefer to use? That's always a good question. I'm not actually going to use the thinner. We're just going to use this, which actually I hadn't used it for probably a couple of years, 18 months at least. So I did use the Galeri Vortex to mix this earlier. So it doesn't really need much in the way of mixing back up for this evening. So we're just going to go straight in. Again, I'm using the 0.2. I am going to put this cap on so I don't end up spilling it everywhere. And this little beast, I can't actually show you it because the power cord is pretty much at the extreme limit. Let's just switch it on. And so that is at 18.5 psi on the actual display. Now if I've just dropped a load of paint. How did I do that? I must have pulled the trigger back. That's a no-no. Weakest point is always the user. So if I've just sprayed a load of paint across there. So I'm getting about 14 psi continuous from that. And you can probably hear the compressor there. It's not too loud. At least I hope it's not too loud for you guys. So apart from my error to start with, let's ooh, as I did not expect. Thing was, I was using this with aqueous paints earlier. I think I might have blocked it. Oh dear. I think I might have caused myself an issue here. Always the way, isn't it? As soon as you go on camera, something happens. Yeah, that's blocked. Okay, so we get to see how easy it is to break this down. Oh, okay, it's easy to squirt paint everywhere. Okay, so this is Make a Mess with Alex Knight. Oh dear. You couldn't script it, could you? Let's put some thinner in there. Let's take off this cup. Try not to drop it on the floor. Let's just clean out that cup. So one of the things that I found about Galeri is that they're pretty easy to break down. So let's see if that is true of this brush. I don't see why it shouldn't be, but always interesting to know. Okay, I don't really want my compressor on at the same time. In fact, let's take off the air supply. May have been because I didn't have this. Okay, so I think what I've done is in transporting it, I think I've loosened the seal there. So I'm not sure actually there is a problem. I think I've just loosened the seal and caused it to blow back. User error. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I've done. Ah, dear. Okay, well, we won't break it down then. I think when I was showing you the like moving this around the cap, I actually did that and unscrewed the end slightly. So one of the ways to get blowback, if you find you're getting blowback in your airbrush when you've cleaned it and everything, 99% of the time it's because this isn't sealing. So if you've got a seal in there, it could be gone. And if you haven't, then it might not actually be tightened properly, because that has to seal properly for your airflow to go where it's supposed to be going rather than going back, because it will take the path of least resistance, of course, and that's probably going to be through your paint reservoir there. Let's just try it with a little bit of thinners just to make sure. Yeah, perfect. Typical. See, it's interesting, locks. I've never got on with my Evolution. I've got the Silverline one, and I always had problems with it. So this is why I say it's such a personal thing. Okay. So you're getting about 16 psi there. There we go. Oh, really, I need to mix it, don't I? There we go. There we go. So you can see with a direct compressor, you can get pretty fine lines. I'm getting a line there, you just may not be able to see it. You know, pretty good. You just need to make sure your brush isn't subject to the vagaries of an idiot like me. So yeah, good thing to always check that your airbrush is actually constructed properly before you start spraying with it. Always helps. There we go. Zinc chromate primer. And I'm going to do this in zinc chromate, and then I'll hand paint the black. Basically that's because I'm spraying lacquer, which is going to act as a primer. God, I've made a mess. So normally, of course, I would be using my little crocodile clip holders, but I forgot and left those at the shop. There we go. The good thing about lacquer is it dries very, very quickly. Oops. Alrighty. I think that's all I've got, right, to actually spray here. Obviously need to do the pedals on this side. Do both sides of them. I'm not quite sure what will be visible or what I need to paint over, but you know, hey ho. So Locke says, I do find you need to make sure the airbrush is clean or you'll get problems with spraying. Always find the needle stuck the next day even after cleaning. Adrian says, Gallery brushes are so quick and easy to break down and clean. So what I do when I'm using an airbrush is after using it, so like now, I don't think I've got, you watch, as soon as I take the paint out, I'll find something that I need to spray, but I think we're good. Let me know if I've missed anything. So let's okay. Yeah, thank you. I don't need air at the moment, thank you. So I've got quite a bit of paint left in, but because it's outlaw paint and it's pre-thinned, I can just pour that straight back, which is great. So I'll blow it back. Oh, I've just I've turned this off, haven't I? Oh God, I really am not doing well tonight. So I'll blow that back. There we go. So that forces the paint back into here. So I'm not going to waste much paint because I'm tight. Close that. Although I've spilled enough from that error before. And then, so I try to clean out as much paint from the cup, just with tissue, as possible to start with, because when I'm then adding thinner, it's going to have less paint to dilute, right? So you're going to get more thinner compared to paint. And then I'll mix that back to try and get the paint mixed so that it's thinner all the way through. Spray that through. And then empty that out. And then just repeat that process. And typically, sorry, my hose has a small issue where if I knock it, it will leak. So while I've got that small amount of solvent on that first one, I'll wipe the surface of the brush just to get any paint off that's leaked. So yeah, then I'll add some more thinner. Well, actually, I'll try and blow that through. So there's nothing left in the cap. Then put a bit more thinner in. Oh, that was the wrong thinner. No. I really am making all the mistakes tonight, aren't I? So the low odour thinner, not the aqueous thinner. Fortunately, they are miscible with each other. So, and then I'll blow through some of that thinner, back flush and empty. So you can see what's left in the brush is pretty much just thinner. Now I'll just put that down whilst I clean this, because this has got loads of paint over it. I want to keep this as nice as I can for as long as I can. So there we go, that's relatively clean. I'm not going to be pedantic about it tonight, but I'll come back and clean it. But now that's clean, what I'll then do, make sure I've got the right thinner, is I'll put a little bit of thinner in there, spray it through, then cap it and leave it. So I leave thinner in the airbrush, and that prevents any paint drying out and sticking to bits. So now you have to be careful if you've got an older brush which has things like natural rubber seals, because they sometimes don't like thinner, depending on what your thinner is. Of course, if it's aqueous, you've got no issues. If you've got a fairly aggressive like lacquer thinner, that can be an issue, so I wouldn't necessarily do it with that. What I'd probably do then is I would use something like lowered 11. This is quite mild. This won't affect seals. This one, oops, that's the wrong cap. One of the reasons I formulated this was because, one, I wanted my lungs to be a little bit less burned with Mr. Hobby leveling thinner, my version of it. And the other thing is it's much milder on its effect on some seals and stuff. It's also compatible, like miscible, with water a lot more than Mr. Hobby stuff. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility. So after making a big mess, This is why I have a paper-based background to my videos. Some more comments. I find having an old jam jar comes in handy for washing out the airbrush. Yes. So a couple of things with that is I always keep my old jars. I mean, I obviously use them for other things, for like making sprue glue and stuff. The other thing is for stuff like you just said, for cleaning. If you need to soak anything in some solvents, like something like that to clean them, or nuclear option or whatever, like an old jam jar or something is great because they're resistant to all glass is resistant to most chemicals unless you're dealing with something like hydrofluoric acid, which I don't recommend anybody does. And yeah, and they're free, so they're great to use. Craig says, give up, Alex, break out the single malt. That's probably the best option. Robert says, I believe the two-horned end cap is to allow easier cleaning of any tip dry blockage. There is also a serrated crown design for ? So yeah, that could be it. So tip dry is one of those things that is inevitable with airbrushing. You can't ever not get tip dry. What you can do is reduce tip dry, and certainly having this open end would make for easier cleaning. The way I would recommend is that you keep a brush with some solvents, and then you can just use it to just brush off any tip dry. It's really quick, it's really simple, it's gentle, and you can get straight on. So that would be my recommendation. Keep a normal hairy stick around with some solvent, and that'll last you for forever in terms of your painting session, and making sure that you can still carry on spraying. Adrian says, if I am not going to be using my brushes for a few days, I use a small amount of deionized water on the brush. Yeah, exactly. Anything like that, any sort of, if you're going to use routine clean, for instance, or deionized water, or water and IPA, something like that, all good. Locke says, I find there is always paint left by the needle seal at the rear, as there is quite a distance where the seal is and the opening when the needle appears. I use a pipette in a pumping motion. Yep. Looks like a lot of hard work. No, it's not, Sophie. It is just me having one of it's always one of those things that when you try to show somebody something, inevitably everything will go wrong. Yep, absolutely. This is why they had, here's one I made earlier on Blue Peter. Absolutely. And it's why videos are a really good format. It's why we edit, right? Because stuff like this, if this has happened to me, you wouldn't have seen it if it was on a video, because I would have, like, all that stuff with the airbrush to start with, I would have sorted out, worked out that I hadn't tightened that seal properly, and then I would have just picked up from like where I was, because I didn't really start doing that. I'd have got a new sheet of paper, I'd have sorted out my issues, and then we just go straight onto the spraying, right? Because we're live, you get to see behind the curtain. You get to see, oh, look at that, I've got a bit of paint on that, I don't want that. There we go. So I do want to try and keep it as pristine as I can, at least for the immediate future. Anyway, I'm supposed to be building this. So this will take a little longer to dry than normal, because obviously there was a little bit of levelling thinner in there, and levelling thinner of any sort will extend the drying time. That's one of the things that makes it levelling. It doesn't dry as fast, so that the paint has more of a chance to spread out. So this won't dry quite as fast as this all did, because this all was dry in seconds, basically. And it's a real shame what happened with Outlaw paints, because they're really good paints. It's just one of those things, I'm afraid. So I'm probably not going to do anything in here because you can't really see inside the Ventura to any degree, and this is just a build for fun for you guys, so I will probably not do a huge amount here. But one thing I can do is kind of get this stuff locked in. So let's make sure we got the paint off these edges. Now, I'm not particularly thorough about this. Tamiya extra thin, you know, my version of it, or Tamiya extra thin itself, will go straight through paint. The point is that I've got paint on that surface. I don't want paint on two surfaces because the possibility is that we'll just get paint and glue mixed and the bond won't be quite as strong. It doesn't matter too much in an internal piece like this, which isn't really going to come loose. It's under no strain or anything. It's squeezed between two fuselage halves, so it'll be fine, but due diligence and all that. So it kind of goes in like that. I'm quite tempted to put that in place before I do all of this bit. Don't know, maybe not. Whilst we wait for that cockpit piece to dry, let's get on with this, because I'm not too I'm far enough away in time from the ridiculousness of having that Revell logo moulded into the horizontal stabilizer there that I'm not too chagrined about it today. So with stuff like this, I tend to, if I'm using Tamiya thin, I'll pre-apply it on these areas, because it's not that it won't evaporate, but it sort of pre-softens the plastic. Provided you you don't wait ages, obviously. I am going to be quite generous on these trailing edges, more so than the other ones, because we won't get as much of an opportunity to add solvent to these after we join them. There we go. So the rest of it, of course, we can just use capillary action to help us out and run some more cement into these joins. And quite often on larger parts, if I'm using Tamiya extra thin or a liquid cement, let's say, I'll do it part by part. So I'll go along and gradually put the thing together rather than trying to do it all at once, because it doesn't matter, right? As long as you've got these two pieces, you know, correctly together, it doesn't matter if you're going to cement it all at once or piece by piece. It'll still look the same, and if you're doing it piece by piece like this, you can ensure that everything is bonded correctly, whereas if you're doing it all at once, you risk rushing it and not getting a proper bond somewhere. So this works for fuselages, you know, main wings, anywhere where you've got a large area that you've got to join together. that's going to take longer than the evaporation time of your cement. Now the trailing edges, obviously, we don't get as much opportunity to put in because of the sort of configuration of them, which is why I put more cement along those wide edges, so it has more chance to bond without putting the other glue in for capillary reaction. There we go. That's pretty solid. The other option for things like this is using something like Contactor. You know, the Precision Cement, the Revell one, Citadel one, Hornby one, the Humbrol one, doesn't matter. Purely because you get a longer contact time. So you're going to get a deeper bond because of that longer contact time. The plastic remains workable for longer. See, for pieces like this, I prefer the brush on my sort of varnish bottle glues, because you can get more on at once. It's less convenient for smaller parts, but it's much more convenient for larger parts. Oh, so MT Park Loafer says, I bought the Ventura after last week's stream you did, and I'm getting ICM's sister kit, the 148th Hudson, soon to be released. Yes, I will have the Hudson in the shop. I've got a review sample coming as well, so I will be building the Hudson. I think it will make an interesting... what's the word? Comparison. That's the word I'm looking for. To this kit. I need tool cleaner. I don't need tool cleaner. I've got litres of this stuff. Literally, I have litres of this stuff. I have more liquid cement than I have containers to sell it in. There we go. I must say the fit of all of this so far has been pretty pleasing. It's interesting that Academy have tooled this, and obviously it's a Revell tooling, but I think it's probably made by, impressed by Academy. It has very Academy-ish vibes about it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. You do enough model kits, you kind of get a feel for like the plastic and the tooling, the way it's done, and of course all of these companies use certain types of machine, of injection molding machine. So like the ICM tools, for instance, the way that they've been designed for the injection molding machines, you can see other manufacturers use that sort of circular injection hub. They must use the same sort of injection machines, I think, and the tools are designed to go with that sort of machine. Or it could be wrong, you never know. So the next one of these builds, I think I'm going to force a decision on people. I want to do a 35th scale armour kit, and I want to do a Panda Models kit. And I've got a load of Panda Models kits in today, including the T-14 Armata, Putin's folly, some Russian projects, the M8 gun carrier, the US. It was a project to follow up from the Sheridan, because the Sheridan didn't perform very well in the Vietnam War. So the M8 was going to be, it's the M8 gun motor carriage, I think. The M8 was going to be the project to replace it, but it never. They made a couple. I think they made 3, but they didn't manage to. None of the services ended up procuring it. It was quite an interesting vehicle, and the M1, the Abrams as well. So I think those are going to be the choices, and I'll put those up at the appropriate time. But the Panda Models kits, I think, look pretty good. So I did an unusual thing today, and I washed two of the kits, plastic, because they do seem to use a lot of old release agents. So. Brian says, has anyone used aluminium tape for bare metal look? How did it go? Yes, I have, Brian. I would say the results are variable. It depends on what you're doing. It depends again. There we go. It depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're trying to do a whole aircraft, I would advise against it. I think now the kind of aluminium paints that you can get are so good, I don't think that bare metal foil aluminium adds that much. Let's say it that way. I don't think it's necessarily worth the return on investment, as it were, because it's quite difficult to work with. If you get it right, it looks great, but is it noticeably better than if you've done a really good job with paints? I don't necessarily think so. Now that you've got some very good paints, I'm really interested to try the Kaleido paints, actually, because some of those the metallics look really good. And of course there's the Vallejo metal air range, which is really good. So Locke says, I've seen the white top glue is the same price as extra thin, and extra thin quick type is more expensive. Yeah, I mean, it's just got methyl ether ketone in it, so it's oh, there we go. High altitude, Brett. Oh, good to see you, Brett. Didn't see you pop in. That was probably my fault because I wasn't looking. I did a video on my channel a few years ago comparing bare metal foils, and aluminium tape was one of those I tested. Mostly it tends to be thicker than bare metal and the other folks. Yeah. Sophie says you should build a PE kit, Alex. Nah, not my thing. So yeah, go and check out High Altitude Hobbies and Brett's channel. So Brett, for those of you who don't know, runs High Altitude Hobbies, both the YouTube channel and US model shop. So if you've got any modelling needs and you're based over in the US, Brett can sort you out. If you're in the UK, I can. All right. I'm torn on whether to glue that in. I don't think I'm going to just now. Let's wait. I'm going to take all of this tape off though, because it's not adding anything at the moment. So this is always the way with builds, isn't it? It's like the first bit goes really quickly, and then you're waiting for all of this stuff. Okay, so the one thing I can look at are transparencies. So this is the transparent frame, which I must say looks pretty good overall. This looks quite nice. So we could look at attaching some of this into the main fuselage now that I've actually got the paint on. Now I got the paint on, of course, I've got to actually scrape paint off. Fortunately, they do give you quite nice areas for securing these either side, which is nice. I appreciate that, although I'm making a mess of this, trying not to damage the window frame as I do it. It'll be easier on the other side where I haven't glued bits of the interior in. I stand by my choices. So it doesn't have to be massively clean. All I'm going to do is tack these in place. I am going to use extra thin. I'll live dangerously. So I kind of want to show that you can use, I showed it last week with the wing light, is that you can use standard cement on transparencies without fogging them. You just have to be careful. You know, it's how you use them. And because they don't need, you know, they're not structural pieces, it's not like they're supporting any weight and stuff. You don't need to slather the thing in glue. You know, and capillary reaction is your friend. Now, of course, the side that I've put all the stuff in has more windows than this one. Typical. I should have put it in the other way round, shouldn't I? Hindsight's 2020, of course. So the main thing here is trying not to mess up the frames. I mean, it wouldn't be catastrophic if I did, because there's obviously UV resin. I can repair stuff, but I'd rather not if I don't have to. Now, if you're going to ask why didn't I put in the windows first, it's because that would have made it harder to spray. I'd have had to mask those, and I'm lazy. So you have to deal with it in some way. This is the way I deal with it. Typically, I like to leave stuff off and spray stuff and then put things in afterwards. Typically. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that's generally the way I do things. Right, I do need the instructions to work out which of these go where. Which means I've got to find out where I've left the instructions, because they are not in the box. Yeah. Just down there. They were in the box, but I took them out. Okay. 119, 120, 122. 119. 119 is this one. So 119 is the first one. 120. Okay, it's not really intuitive on the frame where they are. And then 122 is the last one there. Okay. So the advantage of doing it this way, of just tacking them in with Tamiya after you've sprayed and not gluing it first, is you get to test fit them and make sure that there's no issues without glue being everywhere, and that's how you get them, you know, frosted and looking nasty and everything. So then what I'm going to do, hopefully you'll be able to see this, I'm literally just touching the edge there. You see the glue instantly went where it was needed. No extra, no pushing it or anything. I'm just going to let that set. They do seem to be handed, these windows. So it looks like they only go in one way. And there's a pretty tight fit, which is good. Yep, that's okay. Quite got. There we go. And then the last one, I need to just make sure there's a little bit of a burr on that from where I cut it off. I think because it's so tight, I want to make sure that all of those pieces aren't preventing it going in. That does seem to be the right way. Oh, that was very pleasing. I don't know if you heard that little snap. There we go. There we go. Transparency is in that side. Once these are all set, so tomorrow, when I know there's no possibility of the glue being active at all, I actually just will wipe over these with just a soft cloth, just to remove any fingerprints from the inside. And then on this side we have numbers. 110 is the front one. So this one is the front one. And then 121 is the rear one. They are slightly dissimilar sizes, so they would only go in one way, but I figure you don't want to be trying to work out which is which on the fly. I think that would be a real pain. Mind I don't cut myself. I'm pretty good. This is pretty blunt actually, and I've got enough experience using scalpels that I generally scalpels are pretty safe unless you're using excessive force. All the times I've cut myself with a scalpel, I've been applying unnecessary force. You shouldn't need to use a lot of force with a scalpel. It's kind of one of the signs that you're using it wrong is if you're having to use excessive force. A bit like policing. If you're having to use excessive force, you're doing it wrong. They are quite pleasing when they go in. They just like snap in, and then that's it. I do like that. That is If only more kits did that. Sometimes, you know, it's just the little things you've got to take pleasure in. So there we go. There's the transparencies. And there is still a good frame to be able to do, you know. So to mask these, I'll put a piece of Tamiya tape over and then I'll cut around in that frame. That's the easiest way, I think, to make sure you've got a really tight mask on windows like this once they're actually in the fuselage themselves. Right, where are we up to? Oh, I do need to do the silver on these, don't I? I think I've forgotten to bring my chrome marker, which is a bit of an oversight. Let's just check if there's other bits I can do in the interim. I do have these machine guns. Do I use them, or do I replace them with something that's a little bit better? What do you guys think? Should I replace the machine guns or should I use the ones in the kit? They're not there. They're not there either. They're here. So the pieces inside the fuselage aren't bad. They're basic, but they're not bad. The pieces outside are literally just tubes. I presume those are blast tubes. Did the actual Ventura have perforations or anything? No, they were just blast tubes. Okay. At least according to the art, it may not have been. We'll have to do a little bit of research there. So where's the nose section? Here is said nose. Okay, let's cut one out and see what it looks like. Right? I should fit the guns. Well, I'm going to fit the guns. It's just whether I use the kit ones or I use something which is a little bit more scale realistic, let's say. I'm thinking brass tube, obviously. Of course, I could do a bit of both. Where have I literally just had the nose? There. It's because I was looking for something green, and of course they've gone the other way around. So, I think they fit like that. Yeah, they're quite pleasing, actually. A little shelf to fit on. Which I think they have to do like that, yes. They're not bad, actually. I think I'll go ahead and use them. So we've got to make sure the top of that shelf is clear. Why am I doing this and not cutting these pieces off the frame? Sometimes you just have to stop and think, why am I doing this? Is there a better way that I can do it? You know. Sometimes the answer is no. You know, there isn't a better way to do it, but sometimes you just think you have to check yourself, you know. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing models, you can always second guess yourself. And sometimes you find, yeah, actually, there's a better way to do this. Come on, you fitted nicely a second ago. There we go. So that's quite a pleasing little fit, actually. He says, as it immediately moves. Come on, sit properly. There we go. Just twist a little bit so you sit flush. That's what we want, is you sitting on there. So 90 degrees like that. Should be kind of parallel like that. That's actually not bad. It's quite nice. Just make sure from the front it looks appropriate, which it does. Obviously, we do need to paint that. And then the other one will go on the other side in exactly the same manner. Okay. I was in the process of cleaning this. So you can't really see it here, but it does have a little step on this little shelf where it actually goes up to. So it's quite a positive fit here of like how far it goes in both directions, which is quite nice. I think the bad thing about it is it's a pretty small contact point for something that sticks outside of the fuselage. So I think the intent is probably that you need to just tack it where it touches the fuselage as well, just so that it stays where it should do. And then from the front, yeah, those are both. Oh, look, it looks like a little face with tiny eyes. It looks like one of those fish. That's not bad. Now, other pieces here that we need to deal with before we put those together. No, I think it really is that basic on here that you don't have anything else. Yeah, because this is where that gun pack goes. So this would either be I think it's a transparent piece at the front here, or that gun pack, which has, I think, another 350 cals. So we all know that Americans love 50 cals, and you know, whether it was in World War II or present day, the 50 cal is ubiquitous in America, and it had great ballistics as an aerial gun, and obviously putting 5 or 6 of them together produces quite a weight of fire. Not quite as much as like 20mm cannon, but you know, 650 cals is nothing to sneeze at. As an aerial weapon, obviously on the ground, utterly devastating. So we'll go ahead and bring these together. I don't know why I'm having trouble doing that when I just did it without any issues previously. There we go. And then let's get that cemented up. There we go. Just going to make sure I've got this joining edge free of paint as well, because I don't want my nose to fall off, as it were. Right, now in this mess of plastic that I've got here, what else do we have? Undercarriage I'm not going to mess with right now, although we could do the wheels, which we probably will. What I'll do is I'll spray all of these components aluminium, including the wheels, and then I'll paint the tyres on, or mask the hubs after painting them silver, and then spray the wheels. So let's get those together. So they're fairly easy, you can't go wrong, they're not handed or anything. Well, you can drop them and lose them, but that's probably all. Also, I have to say, very sad that Dolly Parton passed away. I think she was a pretty nice person, from what I gather. Obviously, I didn't know her. She's a celebrity, so who knows really, but from what I can see, she seemed to be a nice person. And obviously, country and western legend. And very sad that she has left us. Ooh, throwing things around. So what I'll do is I'll keep these on the frame whilst I spray them silver. And then I will take them off, deal with these seams on the wheels, mask the hubs, and then spray them black, or just off black. Rubber black, that's the one. With stuff like this, before spraying them, I'll get rid of these pieces. Because whilst we wanted those for the moulding of the tool, I don't want a piece that I've got to touch up right in the middle of those. There's no reason for it to be there for spraying. So for spraying, I really want the minimal amount of contact points I possibly can have. So what I'll probably do is I'm going to cut this here. In fact, probably cut it. No, I'll cut it here. And then I'm going to cut that frame away so I can clean up the entirety of this side. I'm very careful. Like so. And then I won't get a seam on this side. The only piece that I'll have which isn't painted aluminium is this tiny bit here, which is going to be right up in fuselage. I'm not even going to bother touching that up. I told you I was a lazy modeler. No one will ever see it. If you can see any of it, I'll put some weathering on it. I'll also do the same here. So keeping the connection points at the end here, where it won't make any difference. And then trimming these pieces away, so I don't have to deal with a lot of retouching once I've sprayed these. And I will be using a rattle can aluminium, which I'll weather directly. So for stuff like undercarriage, I find that, you know, spraying a silver rattle can acts as a primer by itself. You can paint any, like if you want to paint the brake lines here separately, then it's already primed, so you can just use standard acrylics. Takes less time, less messing around. Once it's all sprayed, I'm going to cut these pieces off, attach what other pieces I need, and then I can just go straight into the assembly. So sometimes just a little time spent on like how you prepare things before you actually get into making them can save you, you know, a bit of time and effort. So there we go. That's not quite right. Often worth just viewing pieces from different angles, because sometimes you spot little pieces that you've missed which weren't visible from one angle, but looking at it from a different angle you see, oh, that's quite obvious, you know. I think we're all good there. I really don't like this, but I don't know how to change it radically. I don't know how inaccurate it is. I imagine it is, because it looks very basic, but I don't know A, how visible it'll be, and B, what I could really do to make it better. So I might just leave that. I do think these hubs, though, with the cutouts in them, are pretty good. Right, so that's that. So obviously, because I had that thinner in to start with, this is taking forever to dry because it was mostly leveling thinner before I sprayed it. So don't do that. Make sure your paint is well mixed. Don't do what I've done. It's drying like a really slow aqueous paint. User error. There's been a lot of user error tonight. I'm showing you all the pitfalls so that you don't have to make them, you see. Honest, it was deliberate, Gov. Right, let's have a little look at comments. So just going up. It's 50 cal half-inch bullet. Yes, indeed it is. That is why I could never understand why Supermarine insisted on using .303 as the main armament on a Spitfire. Yeah. Dolly cared about people. That's the impression I got. She came across as a very warm person. I believe it was because the War Office had a big supply of .303 bullets they wanted to use, and because of the high fire rate. Yeah, it was very much a matter of pilots said that you had to just basically fill it with as much 303 like rounds to make it too heavy to fly anymore. Rather than causing damage, you just like loaded it with lead. Emma says, I reckon the tyres ought to be more of a grey colour than black, much as our car tyres go. Yeah, so tyres are not really black. They start off obviously as a rubber black, but they do obviously get weathered and do change into a lighter colour. And that's one thing about weathering and making your models look, again, quote unquote realistic, is actually looking at the colours of actual things rather than just thinking, oh, it's a tyre, it must be black, because because we know that rubber, although this is artificial rubber, is black, so therefore they must be black. And it's like, yeah, but that's not actually quite how it works. The same as trees aren't actually brown, you know. So it's a good point, definitely. Sophie's tired. Sophie off to bed. Thank you for a grand live stream. Good night, everyone. Good night, Sophie. Good to see you. And it is coming up to that witching hour, so I should probably be saying good night myself. Obviously, didn't get too much further in the build, but I wanted to show you the Aventus 2 and the Galeri Turbox, the 70s robot, and obviously spraying this with mostly leveling thinner and a bit of paint was a little bit of an error. But we've got a few more milestones that are going to enable us to get to closing up the fuselage. Next time I will do the instrument panel and all the details here, putting on the decals on all of this, a little bit of light weathering, and then we'll close all of that up. We've also got some detail painting in here. I will do the silver or the aluminium spraying on these pieces, and also I will spray these. Now I'll spray these black, and I'll show you why and what I do to those to make them more gunmetal next time as well. So then it should proceed, I think, fairly rapidly, because those are the main pieces, I think, that are stopping us. Oh, and of course I remember the silver, the chrome pen to go on the inside here. So thank you very much for that. Let's go to the other screen. And of course we're out of focus, because of course we are. Oh dear. Why do you keep going on autofocus and focusing on something very, very close to you? There isn't even anything between us. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me tonight. As I say, the Ventura build not progressed a huge amount from where we were before, but the little bit of progression that we've made does get us to a point where we're able next time to be able to really, I think, kick on. Because getting the chrome in the wings allows us to put the wings together. Finishing off the bits in the cockpit will enable us to put the fuselage together, and then obviously once the fuselage is together, the wings can come on, the back can go on, and we're kind of on the home straight. So maybe a couple of weeks, I think, probably, to get to the painting stage of this. So with that, I thank you for joining me tonight, as always. If you're around on Friday, we of course have Scale Model Inc. Live, so you can watch that on my channel or on John Alex's channel where he hosts it. And there will be a video out tomorrow. I'm not quite sure what it'll be on, but there'll be a video out tomorrow. And then hopefully a review on the Galeri stuff on Saturday. Well, that might be tomorrow and the other video might be on Saturday, but there'll be a couple of videos out anyway. So I hope you can join me for one or more of those, and I hope you have a very good rest of your week. With that, thanks a lot, and see you next time. Bye now.